Good morning and welcome to Mission Bio's virtual event series. We'd like to start by promoting our next week's virtual events. We'll have a Mission Bio publication roundup next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. To look at all the publications that Mission Bio that have come out on Mission Bio's platform. And then on Thursday, Mission Bio hosts office hours with our excellent support team. And next week, we'll have Yu Wang talking about secondary data analysis using Tapestry Insights. It's part one of a three-part series from Moonfile to fish plots. So please join us next week for those great events. Just some housekeeping before we get started. We're currently recording the session and streaming live on YouTube. And we love your questions and we'd love to get to all of them during the course of this talk. So please use the Zoom chat or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll answer all of the questions throughout the course of this conversation. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Will Oldham. He's the Director of Manufacturing, and Christine Sherp, our Senior Manager of Quality and Operations. And today we thought we might share what's been happening at Mission Bio and how we've been dealing with COVID-19 and the lockdown, and maybe give some tips about what we're doing as a company to think about how we're reopening during these difficult times. So with that, I'll just start with an open-ended question. Will, Christine, how are you guys doing? How's life at Mission Bio right now?
Life is productive. I think we're all doing very good work from home right now. I think we really jumped right into the work from home, and we've been doing everything that we can with the online platforms.
Great. And Christine, how are you doing?
We are doing awesome as well. So we have a lot of data. We are an AI platform, and we have a lot of data to go through and analyze and look at. So we are actually using that time to be out of the lab really wisely and very, very efficient. So we are really, really busy.
Great. And then, so I think a lot of people are probably curious. Can you kind of go through, Will, what happened when we closed down the lab? How did we make the decision to do that, and what the process was?
Sure. So we got the notification that California was going to issue the shelter in place, and as a business, the executive team, decided that the health and safety of the employees was paramount. And we shut the lab and the offices down. The main thing you want to shut down first is all the equipment, and then you got to make sure that the suppliers aren't continuing to ship. And we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with everything about the building and California.
Great. So what was it like? What did you have to shut down in the lab, for instance?
We had to turn off all the gas lines. We had to turn off all the sequencers. Anything, we didn't, at that point, we didn't know how long we were going to be gone for. So we made the decision to really put everything into a very hard standby mode.
Yeah, that must have been tough. Did you have any prior experience shutting down a lab?
I'd shuttered a lab before for in a previous company, but that was a different situation. The lab was not reopening. This one, the lab was fully intended to reopen when we get through these difficult times.
And then, so I see here, follow regulations. Were there any regulations from the state or from our building? Did you have any guidance?
We really kind of had to think this one through a lot ourselves. The building gave some guidance about the common areas and the janitorial. But we really, we had to do this one ourselves.
Wow. That's really interesting. I'll ask that same question when it comes to reopening, because I know that closing was pretty quick and we had to kind of make it up as we went. But I'm glad we were in good hands with your team. Okay, so we talked about closing, but I think a lot of people really want to know what we're doing to reopen the lab. And so I know, Will, you've sort of set up the system and put it in place. Can you talk a little broadly about what we're doing, and then we'll talk in details.
Sure. So if to reopen the lab, we would take a phased approach. One is this is a new normal situation. So we've never experienced running a lab during a pandemic. So we really want to do a lot of planning and preparation. So that would be the phase one, where you get ready to reopen the lab. You plan everything, write new SOPs. And then phase two is readying the people in the space. If testing was available, you would test the team, and you want to really get the space ready again. So if you have cell lines, you gotta restart the cell lines. If you have sequencers, you gotta turn the sequencers back on and get them ready. Perhaps calibrate any equipment that's out of calibration.
Hmm. So why don't we talk about phase one? And can you kind of go into more details about that? Actually, Christine, would you be able to tell us more about phase one?
Sure. So the thought behind phase one is really to keep the employees as safe as possible, right? And with the COVID-19 situation, of course, the safety measurements increase over time, and we have to be really aware of our surroundings and our PPE. So you might want to think about if there's a possibility, and I'm just going through our plans, what we thought might be important when you reopen the lab in the planning and preparation stage. So we were thinking about, is there a possibility to potentially test employees on site for COVID-19? That is one of the discussion points. And then of course, for the day-to-day work, you want to make sure you have PPE equipment on site. So it's not, you have more than the usual things, right? You have maybe additional gloves, you maybe have some kind of mask or face covering, you have additional hand sanitizers. You make sure before you reopen, you really go through your inventory of all your lab reagents and cells, because you don't want to have people on site and the equipment is not available for them to work. So they are there and have to order things. So that should be done ahead of time. And then we were writing many SOPs to guide our employees through the process on what is different now, right? Because you're walking in the lab, you have to check yourself in. We were thinking about potentially even having everybody measure their temperature. Then of course, office personnel is not used to any PPE, right? What do they have to do now all of a sudden? What is different for somebody who never enters the lab? Because they might have to wipe down their desks every day with Clorox wipes, and be aware of your neighbor next to you. Are they far away enough away from you? How many people can be there? So all these considerations are all of a sudden very different than it was previously. And then of course, besides writing the SOPs, it's also taking the whole staff and going through training and really making sure everybody is on the same page and is aware of the changes, because it's not only for yourself, it's also to protect the others, right? We all have some kind of underlying fear of getting infected or potentially spreading that virus, even though if we don't know we have it, right? There are all these uncertainties, and there's a lot of work went into that stage in the process.
That's really interesting. We have a question already from an attendee. They're curious, was it hard to secure PPE? Did you have a lot of reserves stocked up?
Will, do you know that in detail because you were more involved in the ordering process than I was?
Yeah, it is difficult to secure PPE. I mean, I think, when we made the decision to shut down the lab, Mission Bio also made the decision to donate a lot of our PPE to frontline workers. And so, we really started from scratch to get PPE. We had to make decisions about what PPE to buy. So, that it was available, but of course, there's items that are still very difficult to get.
Great. We have another interesting question. They want to know if we'll share our SOPs. We'll be able to if you email us, I think we can, think about what we can share. All right, great questions coming in. So we had 2 about sharing SOPs. Yes, okay. So we go through phase 1. There's a lot of planning, a lot of figuring out what just happened, where are we, where do we need to be? So once we go through all of the planning, I'd really like to talk in depth about phase 2. So can you run us through a little about what we did to prepare the building, Will, for phase 2?
So, we had we have people go in, a single or double in PPE to really just restart everything. And it's like I said, it's restarting the sequencers, and then it's also restarting the janitorial. But then even with that, that's still the new normal of where, you have to make sure, what does the janitorial staff do for testing, or for, additional PPE items. We have to restart the waste collection. Thankfully, the waste and those types of items are essential businesses, so we're not experiencing any disruption with them.
I'm curious about the signs. Where do you draw from to post signs around the lab and the office?
OSHA has a lot of really great signage. And if you make the assumption that you're working in the environment where everyone might be a carrier or might have it, there's quite a few good signages. And we have a couple great creative people on staff that do a great job with the signs.
And then Christine, can you touch upon what happens in the common areas in our offices and lab?
Yeah, that's an ongoing discussion, right? We at Mission Bio, we have one big kitchen basically, where the kitchen is also used as our lunchroom and break room, and people use it to make coffee and have their lunches stored in the refrigerator if they come in. And that kind of open space, of course, needs to be restricted in some ways, right? So you cannot allow everybody to meet up in the kitchen in a small, fairly small together, or use the same equipment. I mean, these are all things which we have to think about. Can we do that? What are the guidelines? And right now, I think we are really leaning of not having anybody go into kitchen, and our leadership really probably will bring lunch in for the people on site. And if you need any water or drinks, then it might be bottles or cans for the time given, and not the common big pot of water, or everybody uses the same thing. I mean, it's just a risk of contamination and a risk of being too close together, which makes everybody a little bit uneasy. So this is a very maybe tailored and subjective rules for everybody individually, every company, because depending on your layout and how you usually have those places organized. But for us, it's definitely will be probably not be used much. We will try to keep everybody out of the kitchen.
Yeah, it's really interesting to have to think about this. I just read an article today about open office plans, and you know, in the Bay Area, we're a startup, and we love having an open office and a ping pong table, and
Yes.
we might need to put people a little further away and think more about how we are safer during this pandemic.
Yeah.
Whole new world. All right. So that is how we are preparing the building. But next, Christine, I would love to talk about how we're preparing the people. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is an elaborate activity which is really done. I want to say Will is working hard on this to really create, and Will, please chime in, to create a master schedule for the teams on site, so we can have the maximum results with the minimum amount of people. So we can get our work done and really maximize the day and maximize maybe even days in the week, up to 7 days. I don't know if the final decision is made, but really you cannot have 10 people in our lab anymore, right? It means like every team is cut in half, then it's prioritized which functions need to go in, what times of the day will be there, who is going to lead that activity. So I don't know, Will, if you want to chime in. You did a lot of those kind of plannings.
Sure. You know, I have a little bit of previous experience with this, running shifts and things like this to really maximize the space. So right now we have a space that we can't put, you know, everybody in. So how do you get the most use out of that space? And so I mean, we're gonna experiment with things like 12-hour shifts, maybe working through the weekends. You know, I think I have to check Twitter to know what day it is anymore. So you know, we're gonna see what we can do about making that all work. But there's a lot of things we're gonna learn we would learn as we go, right? I'm not sure if someone can wear you know, the PPE for 12 hours. Can we do 12-hour shifts, or is that even possible? So we're really looking into the scheduling aspect of this and trying to keep you know, people's safety and comfort as paramount as well.
Interesting. We have a question from the audience. What are your square footage guidelines upon which you are basing maximum occupancy?
We're really just trying to do, you know, the 6 feet apart from people. You know, our space is about 8,000 square feet, and the lab is about half of that. And so we're, you know, we would start with very minimal staff and then build up, but you know, absolutely maintain 6 feet apart and try and minimize the occupancy.
Interesting. Some great questions around this section. How do you maintain safety in a shared washroom? What are the safety precautions that users should take?
I mean, I think that's really up to one's EH&S, but we do have a shared bathroom, and so we've actually been in contact with the building about surface testing, to see if that's an option in the shared washroom. There's also you know, in the laboratory, there's I believe what's called the you know, the one glove rule, or the paper towel rule, where you know, you never touch the door handle with your hand. You bring a you know, something to touch the surfaces with.
Great. And lots of hand washing for sure. So they're interested about shifts and physical distancing of usage of BSC's, lab benches, bays. How will you manage that? Are you going to use an app?
We you know, we've been looking into a couple apps. You know, we have one app for check in and check out, where we would have all the employees when they're on site check in and check out. You can use G Sheet for scheduling. There are quite a few apps out there. I think one is Hubspace, Clockify. There's quite a few that you can, you can schedule. You can integrate areas into your Google Calendar. Make a BSC a conference room in your Google Calendar and use that as a booking. So there's ways to schedule it. I think for the equipment, every morning or every evening, the teams would do a wipe up and wipe down, and at each station we would post a laminated card, just like any washroom you would go into. Last cleaned by, and you sign off to make sure that it's clean.
Great. I think that speaks to this question, which is, are you planning to have cleaning between shifts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a must. You're responsible for your own workstation, and everybody is always responsible for the safeties of others in these environments. So every workstation and every designated area would have a clean up and clean down list.
I'm kind of curious. I haven't been in the lab for quite some time. What do you clean with? Is it bleach, ethanol?
If it was possible to get the Clorox wipes, you could clean with that. But the 80% IPA is very effective. Most labs have IPA bottles or wipes, and so we still have some wipes. Those are all effective. Just depends on the surface. You don't want to damage any surfaces.
Great. And then we have so one final phase to talk about for phase 2. Christine, so you're in the lab. We would love to know what your team is doing to prepare for actually getting back in the lab and running experiments.
Well, the running experiment part is, of course, part of the planning stage, right? So while we were at home, working from home, we planned out what is the priority of different experiments. And in order to do those, especially our team will need working cell lines. So we have our lab manager goes into the lab a week earlier, is already in the process of going in and restarting all the cell lines, calibrating the incubators, getting the gas lines going, restocking everything and really make the lab workable again, looking at instruments, what needs to be calibrated. Do we have enough liquid nitrogen? Do we need to restock? So there is a whole list of preparation which has to happen before the scientists actually go in and do work. And we would like to have that done before we come in to maximize our efficiency in the lab, right? You don't want to have people there and they are not able to do their experiments because the cell lines are not quite ready, or the gas is empty, or the liquid nitrogen is not filled up. So there's a lot of preparation work going into that, which our lab manager is already actively working on. And then, of course, together with leadership and teams, all the work which needs to be done and which was on the schedule before COVID-19, we had a roadmap and goals, and everything is basically rescheduled to some degree. And then really going and making decisions a little bit more stringent than usual, who is allowed in the lab and what do they actually do. So it's really very, very clear that you cannot be in the lab if you don't have to do a clear to-do list. So it's very thoroughly planned out to really have the most efficiency for the people on site at that moment. So we don't expose anyone, right? If you're not ready to go and get your experiment done, then it's better to stay home and prepare your work from home, make your to-do list, what you need, and make sure you have it all on site before you go in.
Yeah, you don't think about that, but really planning, you don't have the luxury of, oh, I don't have something, so I'll just order it and wait tomorrow. Making sure everything is in place.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll still take questions if anyone has them, but with that, I really want to thank Will and Christine for just sharing with the community what we at Mission Bio are doing during this pandemic, this very strange period in our time. DNA Day was last month, and so just, you know, little humor to promote DNA Day and this odd 2020. Mission Bio created a shirt, so please, if you would like one, go to this URL, and we'd love for you to follow us on social, and we'll send you a DNA is in our DNA shirt with hashtag social distancing, flatten the curve, and alone together. All right, so we have a few more minutes, and I'll just get to a couple more questions. So will you be expecting people that come in to log their every move and step in case they get the virus, and contact tracing will be required? Hope this doesn't happen, but have you thought about this?
So the way we would handle it is more of by the shifts. So and redundancy, right? So you would have the manufacturing team would be split in two, and in each team would have the capability to replace the other team. So if someone was to come back and have symptoms or test positive, that entire shift would be shut down for 14 days. And then if testing was available, retest. So it's difficult to do contact tracing and testing and things like that because of confidentiality and HIPAA requirements. So if you can handle it by doing shifts and having redundancy built in, that would be the way to go.
Great. And with that, I'll end with a comment from an attendee saying, thank you, this is a great presentation. They want to know if the slides or presentation will be available, and it will be archived on YouTube on our Mission Bio channel. So with that, thank you again. And really, we at Mission Bio hope you're all staying safe out there. And thanks again for joining.